Alright, so to start any job, you want to start by prepping. And for the purposes of the video, we'll use the little scuff pad and see how far it gets us. Now, this piece obviously belongs to a MSR carbine. And of course, I'm only doing this for tests because I want to test to see how troublesome the activator is going to be. So I try to go with as much of the surface I can get. Alright, so that was the prep, and as you can see, we got two very, very worn pieces of Scotch-Brite. So that's why I opted for this additional piece. Now, that these are all scuffed, we're ready to blow them off with air and string them, hang them up, hit them with the tack rag, hit them, of course, with the prep all or wipe out, whatever you want to call it, and get ready to apply the adhesion promoter. Alright, now that we got the parts scuffed and prepped, it is time to string them. And don't worry about gloves at this point because we're not quite done yet, but the mystical art of stringing. How do you do it? Where do you string from? Usually, you want to go from the area that's going to give you the least amount of... When you're painting, you could have a line that shows up, so you want to come from an area that gives you the least amount of that. Now that looks close, but you have such an abrupt ridge right there, so I'll probably string it right back from here. Go ahead and cut it. And also, you want to be able to string your parts in a fashion that's going to allow you to hang it over and access all the part without having to touch it. So here, that's about the best I'm going to get. Now, I could string from that. Well, let's see. It's kind of an art form, and it depends on your painting style, too. I got to remember, I'm using rattle cans today, so it's going to be a little different. Yeah. I like that better because I can get in there, It's not normally how I would string this. I'm just going to go with what I like. Always go with your gut. If your gut's telling you to do it, do it. So here we are, we're taking this paint prep pre-cleaner and we're just gonna shoot these parts down with it. Probably gonna shoot a little on my rag. This stuff dries extremely fast, so a good dousing should do the job. And wipe the parts down. As you see, it's already drying. But it's good to wipe the parts down best you can. That way you're actually physically wiping off grease and oil. As you can see, just from that little bit, this rag's like actually dirty. So this stuff actually works really good for the application. Now that we've gotten these cleaned and they're prepped, I like to give the parts a good little blow. Ooh, girl. A little blow with air so we can get any type of moisture or some. Obviously, with the aerosol, it's going to attract moisture from the air and put it onto the part. So we want to get rid of all the moisture and any fog that might be on there. So I'll just give it a real quick once over. We got to add some air here. So now we need to hit our parts with a tack rag. So to properly use these for best results, it's best to fully open them all the way. And these things can be a little sticky and have a residue on them. You don't want to hit the parts with that residue. You want to just lightly dab the parts. It doesn't take much. So these things are a little finicky to get apart, but once you get them apart, they're good to go. There you are. So that's what we're looking at. And once you get it like this, wad it up. And as you can see, my fingers, they have a little sticky residue on them. That's fine because we want dust to stick to it, but we don't want the residue to transfer to the parts. So I usually set mine off to the side, and after I do that, I hit my hands with some grease and wax remover just to get that residue off, because now we're in a point where we don't want to contaminate this surface any further after tack ragging the parts. We want them to remain clean and free of any type of oil. Now would be the best time to overlook everything and make sure you're good to go. So with the tack rag, I just come in and basically just mat it down real soft and light. And this thing will suck up dust like crazy. So okay, so one thing that wasn't mentioned by the school textbook, and I'm talking about Sonoran Desert Institute, That's where I'm going to school. That's who sent me this kit for a school project. They didn't go over it, nor did dip123.com. Is that with any paint that you spray, you want to know what your pattern's going to look like. The best way I do that, and in most professional shops are going to do this, they will have a piece of like painter's paper hung up in their booth somewhere that when they go to spray, they can evaluate their spray and adjust their gun. Not that we can make adjustments, but we can learn a lot from looking at what our spray pattern looks like just by running a thing of paint across it. So we're gonna shake this up and kind of take a look at what our pattern's doing, how it's behaving, before we go and start painting on our parts down there, because we don't want runs or anything else like that. Now, if we get runs, we're gonna see it right here, because obviously if we, look at that. I mean, that is just running like crazy. So obviously we know we need to back up some. As we see, we're getting good atomization and it's sticking like it should be. So I'm gonna come in a little bit and I'm gonna run a path down. And as you see how one side's really thick and one side's really thin, it tells us that these little nozzles, they're not spraying like they should be. I'm gonna flip this because I'm gonna be going a different direction. So that's better. So now we're in a little bit closer, it's better, but I'm still starting to see some runs in there. You may not be able to see this right here, but if you look to the side and let a little bit of ambient light hit it, you will notice some runs. So obviously this needs to be our distance, about right there. And I'm getting a nice gloss buildup. I'm not having any runs like that, so I'm gonna stay about 6 to 8 inches away. I would do this anytime you're painting. You need to know what your gun's doing or your can's doing. You need to know this stuff, and this is the best way to do it on a piece of brown or white piece of paper. It'll tell you a lot about how that can's gonna perform before you start going painting your precious gun and possibly making a run on it that's gonna spend hours sanding out and all that. Another thing to keep in mind when you're applying this stuff, it has a 10-minute recoat time, meaning that you have about 10 minutes after the final coat to apply your primer or your base coat or whatever. So keep that in mind when spraying. Make sure you're all ready to go. All right, so now that we've done the self-adhesion promoter, we need to move to the self-etching primer. Make sure it's shook, ready to go. Shake it up a few times. This thing's gonna be the same process. It's gonna be about 3 to 4 hours full dry time, about 10 minutes till dry to the touch, and of course 2 to 3 minutes in between coats, so we gotta go kind of fast here. This stuff doesn't have one of those fancy spray nozzles, so I had to test it on my paper, and it's a little big. So start out real far and then work your way in so you get a nice even coat. So when prepping your parts for paint, after you've primed them, I want to caution you if you're using aerosol, wipeout or prep all, whatever you want to call it, because as you can see, this removed quite, I'm not saying a lot, I mean it's fine, because there is a fine haze on there, but I have never seen prep all or wipeout actually remove paint like that in this fashion of what you're seeing right here. So just be careful. I think it has to do with the flammability of the aerosol that's in there. It's probably enough to actually grab. So if you spray these parts down, you might actually end up with a disaster on your hands. So just be cautious. spray it on a rag, wipe it clean. The parts don't have any oil on them anyways. You just got done priming them. So I'm already a little disappointed with dip123.com because the cans in this kit are the way this thing is spraying is so erratic. I even just changed the nozzle on it. You can see how erratic it is. It is just, these are not balanced at all. I might actually have to end up running down to the parts store and grabbing an actual real can of paint, because this repackaging crap they do, I don't think it's gonna fly. But we're gonna do it on our test piece and see what kind of results we get. If it goes good, we'll keep it that way. But this is getting scary because now we're gonna be on the activator next, and if this is spraying like ass, the activator is gonna do the same thing. No, that's horseshit. Okay, since 123 dip kits paints absolutely suck, I'm gonna assume that the clear coat is gonna suffer the same fate. I've switched to Duplicolor. I don't know if there's a difference between enamels or this stuff, but I know this stuff is meant for cars, and urethane paints are what is used in the hydrographics industry. So I'm not gonna use the pattern that is inclusive to SDI. I'm gonna use a different pattern, which I've already ordered weeks ago. But instead, I'm gonna actually do a pearl tone. So I'm gonna go with a solid white base color, and then there's a metallic white pearl, and then of course I'm gonna go with a high gloss clear instead of the matte clear that came in the kit. So let's check this out. I think these are gonna spray a lot better than what came in the kit. What we're doing is a white base coat, and then we're gonna follow that by a pearl tone, because the pattern I'm doing on this will look really cool with a pearl tone in the paint. And so most white pearl tones are done at what's called a 3-stage paint. So there's a white base coat that goes on, then over the top of that, a semi-clear pearl tone paint is done over the top that gives it the white pearl, because if you mix the white mica pigments of pearl into white paint, you never see them. Now we have the white pearl that we're going to put over the top of it. So you got to have a white base coat. Like I said, I sprayed this on my paper. Sure enough, it's clear. So good thing we started with the white. Alright, so as you can see, the pearl tone came out real nice on here. Everything's all nice and shiny like I want it. It's going to lend a real nice effect on the gun. So this is going to be my test piece. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start taping. And the taping part is really critical, because we got to think like water does. And if we're pushing a body into water, how water is going to move around. And we want to kind of use the tape as a way to control the movement of the water and how fast it moves, where it moves, how it moves, etc., etc. And also, using this tape is going to allow us to make a means to hold the part and control the part while it is in the water. One of the bigger things is taping off edges. Taping off edges is so critical, because that allows the water to kind of roll up, or it allows the film to kind of roll off of that onto the edge of the tape. And sometimes taping can be a little difficult to get in the edge, but we will make do. Alright, so this is it. It's all pretty much done, taped up, ready to roll. This is the first piece we're going to start with, obviously, because I want to use this to measure certain angles that I'll be dipping at, how the film dips, and of course how the activator works. That's the biggest thing, is activation. So I'm going to try a few test pieces first, see how they work, make sure everything's all kosher with it, and just go from there. But you know, here we are, we're ready to roll. Hit that left button. So, turn on the torch.
Think that's a little too much? I'll take it over to rinse.
No, that's fine. We're gonna let it sit on here for a second. That activator gets a little hot, so it can melt the parts. So what we're doing is we're letting this kind of sit under the water for a second to kind of let the activator cool off, because for a minute or two the activator can be a little warm coming out of here, and it can tend to pull away from, you know, this helps set the ink. It's hard to explain, but this kind of helps set the ink into place. You can see from looking under it, wow, that was a great hit. Look at that. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
That looks nice.
That is amazing. But even though it looks good right now, it ain't good till it's washed. Once it's washed, we know it's good. So yeah, that came out great. Man, they use actually a really good activator. I'm actually impressed with their activator. Looking good. Nice single hit. Fade the edges a little with the airbrush, but man, that was a good hit. That was a real good hit. Alright, so when we go to cut the film, what I like to do is I like to actually lay out a template of the size of film I need for my tank. So that's what this is, and I'll actually cut within the confines of this because the edges are going to roll a little bit due to the way I cut it. In between cuttings, I like to keep this in the inside because this is very sensitive to moisture and temperature and stuff, so we'll just keep it inside in between cuttings. I like to cut little slits on the edge. It'll help the film roll and not crumple up on us and stuff. It also prevents water from leaking into the top of the film. The best thing to do is make sure you can blow all the air bubbles out of there, because you're going to get little air bubbles here and there. I mean, this is pretty good, and that's not really going to be where I'm going to dip. Just be careful, because you can blow it so hard that you'll actually blow a hole through the film or cause water to splash or blow some spit on it. So nice hit. Real nice hit. Just leave it under there for a second. This activator is acting a little funny, as you can tell. I'm not a big fan of, and they have good activator. I'm just not a big fan of how their can spray like that. I can't have inconsistent activation, you know, and I think for a do-it-yourselfer or some guy that's new at this, that right there, they would have messed up their film. But, you know what I mean, hey, you're in the business of selling film. Why not have people mess it up and put out crap product like that? It's the name of the game. Seems like what it seems to be inside the selling side of, or the supplier side of the film industry. Yeah, we got a few spots we're going to have to airbrush. That's fine. That's to be expected. There's a lot of weird angles on the sub 2000, man. So what you're seeing right here and right here and right there, I mean, that's it. There's not much you can do about those. It's been in my experience. It just happens. Usually spots like that are just touched up with the airbrush. A lot of these screw holes aren't really going to matter because there's washers that go in them. So that's not too big of a deal. But it's like that piece right there, I'm going to be a little bit more concerned about that. I'm going to airbrush it in with some black or some of the film that will liquefy with the activator. Alright, so now obviously I actually opted to go with a little bit better of an airbrush than what I got at Harbor Freight. I think I paid about 30 bucks for this. So now we're just going to go in and actually touch up all the little spots and stuff and blemishes. and airbrush them all in. Once we're done airbrushing everything and we're happy with the results that we have, we're gonna go ahead and start to begin to clear. And of course, we'll start the whole process with lightly matting down the parts of the tack rag just to get any last loose minute dust off of it. At this point, I would not use the aerosol can with the prep all or the wipeout in it, because I did that and it on a test spot and it actually pulled the paint up off of it. So whatever that aerosol stuff is, I wouldn't recommend it for the same use as prep all. I would stick to the liquid stuff. Prep all, it comes in a gallon liquid. You can pour it into a little cheap spray bottle and then, you know, just spray it on by hand and then wipe it down. And that stuff is not very aggressive. Of course, this is also not urethane paint either. It's something a little similar but different. So that could also be the problem as well. But either way, I got good results. I'm happy with what I got. We're gonna start clear coating.